Hey everyone, Daskalos here, and welcome to Painting the Aryballos. Now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out how to paint or mark the straight lines across the Aryballos, because what I need to do is I need to divide up the Aryballos into zones, and I'm using this little hobby turntable in an attempt to get the line straight, but obviously it's not working. Now if you don't know this, I am completely new to this whole thing. I've never done this kind of stuff before, and I'm kind of just figuring it out as I go along. So what I figured I'd do is I'd go through and measure along the side of the Aryballos and mark where all the lines are going to have to be that'll divide up the zones. And I'm still desperately trying to use this little turntable, but it ain't working out. So an Aryballos is an ancient Greek vessel that held perfume, and the perfume that they used was basically just scented oils. And they all came in these little jars like this, and the sizes range from all over the place, from golf ball size all the way up to, I don't know, like a small vase. The design that I picked for this Aryballos is taken from an Aryballos sitting at Syracuse, and I'll post a picture of the design that's sort of laid out right here. Now here I go with a detailed brush, applying some of that slip. And slip is basically just other clay that's been watered down to the point that it's in a consistency kind of like, I don't know, watered down yogurt? That doesn't really sound appetizing, now does it? Anyways, I can then apply it much like paint, and when this fires, this slip will turn black and the clay of the vessel body will stay this sort of orangish red that attic pottery is so famous for. Which I realize is kind of weird, since the vessel shape and design are Proto-Corinthian, which is usually a pale yellow color, but that's not really important. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to divide the Aryballos vertically. I've already divided it horizontally into the zones, but I need to divide those zones up even further in order to get that design on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace around the base of the Aryballos onto a 3x5 card and divide that into quarters. Then using some folding and a ruler, I divide those quarters up a few more times to get the division lines relatively even. And it doesn't have to be exactly even because this is all hand painted. Then it's just a simple cutting out the bottom of the card and placing it over the Aryballos, which is turned upside down, to give me a little template to apply those lines. Then all I got to do is just go through and apply those lines onto the Aryballos body. I'll be eyeballing all those onto each zone as I work on them, simply because, like stated earlier, this is all done by hand, and I don't want it to look like it's been done by a machine. Once I have all those lines marked out on the bottom zone, I'll then go to the top of the bottom zone and mark in between those lines as well, and I'll connect them into this sort of triangular pattern. Once I apply the slip, I'll have the design of the bottom zone of the Syracuse Aryballos. And don't worry about the pencil lines, they'll burn off in the kiln. The hunting scene in the zone above the triangle ends up being pretty straightforward. When the zone is divided into quarters, following my earlier template lines, each quarter gets this cat or dog thing animal, and the rabbit will straddle two of the quarters in what I've decided will be the center line of the whole vessel. Much like the hunting scene, the zone above that with the curly wave things is also divided into quarters, but now each quarter is divided twice more for a total of 16 sections in that zone, and the waves will fill each of those. Finally, the main scene. Now, once divided into quarters like the others, the scene is pretty manageable. One quarter gets the single hoplite, one quarter gets the dueling hoplites, and the remaining quarters get a sphinx and an accompanying detail, either the diamond shape or that weird little dancing guy. Like, what is he even doing? Now for the figures, I'm going to use the same technique that the ancient painters of black figure pottery used, which is to paint the entire figure in silhouette and go back and incise the detail lines. This will give the black figure its namesake while alleviating the need to paint in the detail lines. Now for the incising. I'm using a sewing needle jammed into my X-Acto knife handle. With a little bit of pressure and some short strokes, I'm able to get just below the slip and into the untouched red base material. Now here's where things didn't go so well. The slip ended up not going on thick enough, and it left the Aryballos with a faded look. If you notice, the triangles in the hunting scene ended up okay, and I suspect that is because they didn't use any thin lines from the detail brush. The slip went on thick in those areas, and the others didn't. Or maybe that's just where I held it, and therefore wiped some slip off? Who knows? And although rather unfortunate, the faded lines kinda do give it that antique look. Well, what do you think? Should I leave it, or should I touch it up? Until next time, I'll see you then.